Hi,
Hi,
welcome to Tya Talk. I'm
thank you.
here with Shannon. Shannon is our most recent Tya Bootcamp graduate. We had a few people just graduate, but I believe you are still the most recent official Tya Bootcamp graduate. And your many other things. And instead of me trying to go down the whole list of all of that, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, your history, and then we'll kind of talk about. Well, we have a statement from the stream to start off, but then we'll dive into some other topics. So go ahead and tell them about your background and a little bit about your Taya journey so far.
Okay, yes, so Shannon O'Flaherty, and I've been a spiritual coach and healer, shaman, therapist, educator for 20 years. I've been on this path. I also take small groups to Peru on shamanic spiritual healing trips, not during the pandemic, obviously, but usually. And I think it's good to continually evolve your path because it's always good to keep deepening the work. And I had the opportunity to go on Taya, which was wonderful. It came at a wonderful point in my life. You know, we go up and down the spiral through life. And it really deepened my own practice more than I could have ever imagined that it would. And it took me to perhaps the most aligned place that I've ever been in, and feel very joyous that I did that and have come to this perfect place now. That's it in a nutshell.
So thank you for that, for introducing yourself properly, because of course you did a much better job than I could have done covering all of that, all of your history. So welcome everybody. I see a lot of you jumping on now. So as you sign on, just drop a hello wherever you're watching us. If you say hi, we'll see it because I have the whole feed from all the destinations. We're on YouTube right now. We're in a couple of places on Facebook, and I want to start this. We have a couple of topics I want to dive into. One is yesterday's post. If you're in the Facebook group, we post these questions in there all the time as sort of conversation starters. And yesterday's conversation starter was, what are your frustrations with Taya practice? So we'll dive into some of those toward the end of this interaction. And then, of course, the overarching topic here, as always, is living life as a source aligned being. We sometimes we'll say source connected, but really we're all connected. We're all connected all the time. Source does not leave us. It is always there. It is us who is doing the drowning out of source in our lives and our experience. It is us who is creating all of our evil and all of our contrasts and all of the negative aspects of our lives, because we're creating all the aspects of our lives and our experience. But something interesting from this morning's meditation, if you wish for joy, clarity, abundance, we always put that caveat out there because the stream is not here delivering a set path for all of humanity. We have called the Taya practice the new operating system for humanity. I believe that's a great new operating system that any human being, if they're aligned with it, can adopt. But not everyone is necessarily focused on joy, clarity, and abundance as a priority, and that's okay. But if you are looking for joy, clarity, and abundance in your life, the stream is here delivering a clear path to that I've seen work with people all over the world and continue to see that. So if you wish for joy, clarity, and abundance, understand that nothing in the outer world is as important as your own inner work of detuning fear and judgment.
That's very true.
So paying attention to media, paying attention to politics, being fearful about pandemics and arguing about vaccines and all of this stuff, all of that is sort of smoke and mirrors. And without demonizing that, because we don't demonize the matrix, but that is the matrix. We always say, you're in the matrix when you are polarized. And we're all in and out of it. We're all sort of, not to sound like too much like a sci-fi movie, but really spiritual work is sort of about escaping the matrix mentally and allowing yourself to not be dragged down vibrationally by it. But in doing that, you can't judge it. You can't get out of the matrix and turn around and say, gosh, all of you people in the matrix, you're so wrong and I'm so right. If you're doing that, you're in polarity and you are very much part of the matrix. So there's this interesting balance of appreciating the matrix and seeing it with great clarity, and then being able to really understand that your joy, clarity, and abundance is always internal work. It has nothing to do with what's going on outside of you.
Yeah, I would really agree with that. And I think something to really think about in terms of, because we're always connected to source energy, but when we get consciously connected to source energy, then we're really in the present moment. Because the minute we start to spiral down, we very rarely start to spiral down in the present moment. We're usually projecting what ifs about the future, or we're thinking about what happened in the past, or we're worrying about something that hasn't happened at all. And that's not being right here, right now, in our aligned state, channeling that beautiful source energy light. And so when we're in that aligned state, then it's very easy to stay in a place of compassion for all of the separation that's going on all of around all of us, going on all around all of us all of the time. So that you can look at things, and then it's okay for everybody to have their own opinions and choices. I think that's the thing, that we all have a choice. And right now, in this time on Earth, when we're losing our right to human sovereignty, more people are standing up. So in a way, that's also a gift, because more people are awakening because they're losing their choices. And so it might seem like everything is really terrible and scary right now, but if you can get out and see it from, well, I'm a shaman, so the condor vision, we call it, but from the God point of view, it could look very, very differently if you zoom out and look at the whole picture and hold space for the possibilities of what you want to call in. That's being in alignment, not looking at what all the crap in front of you, but holding space for putting your intention out there for what you want to call in.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of times people want to argue that, but don't you have to XYZ? And it's not necessarily about not participating in humanity as much as it's just not judging what humanity is up to, what humanity is flowing through. Because when you start judging it, then you're fueling whatever you're judging. And that's
Well,
a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, because we're taught so opposite of that. But
I think that
it's so robbing of our power, right?
it is, because I think a lot of people have the false presumption that everybody is supposed to have the same opinion as me, right? But what a boring world that would be if we all had the exact same opinion about everything. It's about being able to live with your brothers and sisters, with your neighbors, with your strangers, with people from foreign countries, different races, different people, with differences of opinion, and being open to hear the differences of opinion, that there is no right or wrong, because what's right for you might not be right for me. What's right for me might not be right for you, but that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It means that it's personal choice. And to be able to hold that space for everybody to be able to express their authentic truth, that's unconditional love. That's holding that space of compassion and allowing, and being connected to source energy, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, the idea, the concept of living a more source aligned life, we have to first understand that we're operating in vibrational flow. So that vibrational flow is intended to take us out of that connection, or out of that alignment, because the stepping out of the alignment with source creates our contrasts, which is part of our human journey that we all came here to have. Meaning that creates all of our problems, all of the things that we judge as unwanted. But when we start understanding that the only thing that creates the suffering in any of those things is simply our judgment of it as wrong or unwanted or unnecessary, and all of it serves a purpose. But when you're busy judging it, you're not getting the clarity of how that contrast is actually serving your expansion.
That's right. And I think that's really where, certainly for me, where the appreciation aspect of Tya really, really clicked in. When you can look at all of the challenging parts of your life, all of the crap, and think, oh yeah, actually that's really, really awesome because it set off this chain of events and this gave me this kind of awareness. And if I hadn't realized that that really wasn't working for me and that wasn't what I wanted to do, and so really I needed to do this instead, then you wouldn't have changed course or direction. And so when you also, you can also look back on your life in retrospect, such a beautiful thing, and really easily go back and find appreciation for the series of events based on your choices, which were born out of contrast, out of conflict, out of trauma. But so people get stuck on the, oh, that was terrible, focusing on how terrible it was. But this is just a shift in perception. Just reframe that and look at, well, actually, if I hadn't had that experience, then this wouldn't have happened, and then this wouldn't have happened. And then it's really, really easy to go back and change all of that into appreciation. I mean, it's like having magic powers.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
It's magical when you detune something through radical, or we call it radical appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just radical because we're taught not to appreciate it. That's why I like to label it radical, because a lot of times people sort of bypass with forgiveness and appreciation and things like that. And they're not really going deep into appreciation, meaning deep understanding of. Because when you deeply understand something, you can't help but find some lightness or some appreciation of them or of the situation. When you have that deep understanding, the judgment just goes away. But we don't always seek in our society currently to understand. We seek to battle. We want to be right. We want to dig in and be right, and everyone in the other side is wrong. And we see all of that polarity. That is the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
So the source perspective of everything is non-judgment. And if you were indoctrinated in religion, you were taught the exact opposite of that. You were taught that God or source is all judgment all the time, all about judgment and your behavior and what you're doing. Is it pleasing him? That whole concept never really rang true for me as a child. And I moved away from it. And I really paid attention to my own inner knowing, which we now call the stream. And I never got judgment from the stream. I never got judgment of other people from the stream. I never got judgment of challenges and things like that as something that I was a victim of. I never got that from the stream. I always got that this is an experience, and anything that saying, I love the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Because there's some truth to that. We are here to become more sophisticated consciousness. That's why we come to physical and have all these contrasts, because think about it. If we live a life without contrast, without desiring anything, without having things that we discern as not our preference, how much sophistication are we garnering from this lifetime?
Well, yeah, exactly right. Because humans, unfortunately, learn through trauma. And the most humans, I think, especially if being raised religiously, you have a very punishing God. And so you're standing there in a pool of your own blood, punishing the hell out of yourself, even though you might be the most loving, giving, wonderful person. And people are looking at you thinking, what is your problem? I'm speaking from experience here. What is your problem? You've got everything, blah, blah, blah. And yet you can't even see or honor or acknowledge or receive your own light because you're putting such a judgment on every little thing that you did or didn't do, and giving yourself such a hard time for it, instead of appreciating all of the wonderful things that you are doing, appreciating your own value, receiving yourself. Because, in giving, energetically, you give, but the return of that is receiving. It's a figure eight. And it's the same thing with the God energy. If you're allowing that source energy to come through you all of the time, then there is no punishing. You're receiving and you're giving that out again. So
that infinity, that infinity symbol is a figure eight, and it's really a sign of vibrational flow. You go down into lower vibration, and that lower vibrational period creates contrast for you. As soon as your vibration goes up, you solve that contrast. You go back up to complete source alignment, and then you cycle right through it again. Because vibrational flow, that creates the universe, though.
Yeah.
And when we start having deep appreciation of the fact that contrast creates the universe, meaning physical beings experiencing challenges, experiencing things that it discerns as not a preference, whatever that physical being is, and then creating new, evolving, becoming more intelligent, becoming a more sophisticated version of, is that consciousness contribution to the collective of all that is. And that's the whole purpose of being in any physical environment. So when we realize that as human beings, we can get out of that fear, because fear is the thing that holds us in the matrix.
It really is.
Fear of death. Gosh, how powerful is the fear of death? Look at how many people die because of the fear of death. And not just because they're attracting death. We all, intend to have an end to
He's
our
going to die sometime.
yeah, but how much matrix induced strife and illness and all of these things, how much of that transpires just because we are so afraid of the inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's that ticking clock on the inevitable that makes that fear very exploitable. And so it's simply like, okay, that's how humanity operates. That's where we are. I can move out of that and see it clearly without judging it.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to do. I mean, it's not just our Western world's version of death, which is fearful and not really taking care of the elderly properly or paying them any mind. In the shamanic tradition, generally, they know when they're going to die, so they call in all of their loved ones so that they can be surrounded in love. And the shaman passes on his mesa, his altar, to his apprentice or his child or something, so that the journey can continue, and so that everybody can be there and hold space for that. And so it's a celebration of love for the next part. And then whoever is attending, cuts the energetic lifeline as a gift to help them transfer on to the next level. And I think they're not denying death, it's a part of our life process for all of us, like it or not, at some point in time. But you can do it gracefully, or you can resist it and fight it. That's the ultimate. But look at all of the stuff that we're resisting and fighting every single day. And this is what I loved about Tya, because from the discerning your preferences, such a duh moment. But really, when I heard that one, I was like, well, duh. Except that it's so valid, because we live with so many things day in, day out that we don't like, that you can change in one hot second. Yet we live with them day in, day out. And even though we're not consciously aware of it, and we're not really losing sleep over it, it dips your vibration. And so that's like, why have that dip? Because that's a moment of resistance. It's a moment of, why? Just get rid of it. Transmute it. Clear it. And then if you practice with all the small things, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So that if you do this practice, that's why it's called a spiritual practice, because you need to practice consciousness just like everything else. We're born with it, but then we unlearn it. So then we have to relearn it. Mm-hmm. But if you keep practicing from the smallest things up, then by the time we are actually ready for death, hopefully it can be a graceful process instead of one filled with pain and agony and trauma and stress.
Yeah, it's interesting when you really just sort of learn to not judge what you're absorbing. But sometimes we're moving through vibrational flow, and here's the thing: we're getting into frustrations now. I think part of the frustration is that we're moving through this vibrational flow. So no matter what work we do, polarity is going to pull our vibration down time to time, from time to time. And when that happens, then we're much more susceptible to getting drawn back into the matrix. So there's no such thing as just, I'm going to operate outside of the matrix all the time, 100%, and never be judgmental, never be fearful again. I don't think that we achieve that until we cross over. And if we do, great. I haven't met anybody yet that is having that experience of perfection here on Earth. I think some people put themselves out there that way, but I think inwardly they still have this this reaction of vibrational flow, because why else would you even be in physical if you're not moving through
Yeah.
vibrational flow and
Yeah.
solving things? Because if you think you've crossed the threshold of perfection, that means you've got nothing else to learn and nothing else to
Mhm.
expand your being in. So
Mhm.
why are you here? Uh,
Exactly.
but it's so much fun when you really understand the process of detuning and clearing and moving through what we call spin outs now. I love that term. We came up with that. I think it came around last year or somewhere in something with the stream, that we have this period of low vibe, and we'll have a spin out. We'll spin out in health. We'll spin out in a relationship. We'll spin out in money flow. We'll spin out in some area, and that spin out is always revealing to us what we can work on next in our own vibration, if we allow it to. And the faster you appreciate the spin out, the sooner you get the clarity of source flowing, because all you have to do to get source clarity is raise your damn vibration, right?
I think it was my spin out last year that got me into
Yeah.
Tya, and I think it's very important. I mean, most people in Tya are learning about paying attention to what's going on in your thoughts and what you're thinking, so that you can notice where you are on your vibration, because a lot of people maybe have never even given this a thought. Am I up? Am I down? What's going on in my head? Where am I? What am I thinking about?
Yeah, I think most of humanity is probably just moving through thinking this is a good day, this is a crappy day.
Mm.
I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Why, everything sucks. I do think that everyone innately has some awareness that their mindset is creating their reality, at least on some level.
I would like to believe that. Yes.
Well, I think that's why The Secret was such a
Yes.
wildly popular book, because
Yeah.
it sort of packaged that idea in a very simplified way and marketed it to the masses very effectively. So to me, for a lot of people, I think that was sort of the first step into spirituality
Mhm.
by accident.
Mhm.
Gosh, I bought this book because I wanted more stuff, and then all of a sudden I realized that all roads lead back to some sort of a otherworldly connection beyond humanity, and maybe it's not what I was taught growing up in church.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to the contrast, because we have ups, we have downs, and that's all important. So, and not to judge the downs, and not to suppress what you're feeling either. Not like, oh, I'm just not going to feel that, because we're human. We need to feel all of that. And especially if you're grieving, you need to grieve. So there's a time we have all of these emotions for a reason. But a friend just asked me recently, well, what do you do? And she was projecting into the future. And I said, well, I don't think about the whole rest of my life, because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, or who I'm going to meet, or what's going to develop. I'm just focusing on today. So the minute that I notice my mind is going off into the what ifs, which is spiraling me down pretty quickly, and luckily I notice pretty quickly these days, I go, okay, stop. Okay, do I really need to worry about that now? Usually it's no, has nothing to do with right now. Okay, and let's get me back on track. And then I can go back up the spiral, because this is what, in the not noticing, it keeps us down the spiral. And for some reason, we like to stay down there and focus on the negative stuff and suffer. And
Well, it's
really,
very it's addictive. It's soothing. It's sort of this created space where it's soothing to your ego to stay down there and wallow a bit in that self pity and this wasn't my fault. I didn't do this. The world is so mean. And I think a lot of that goes back to religion. That idea
mm,
that there's a savior, that there's an
mm.
energetic savior that's going to just come down and scoop you up and save you. I always had an issue because I had a very religious aunt growing up, and she was always talking about how much Jesus blessed her. And financially, she was very blessed. She, beautiful house and new car every year, and all these things. And I just remember thinking that it's so interesting that Jesus chooses to bless you, but not us. We're poor. You're bringing your kids' hand-me-down clothes over for my brother and I to wear. Why aren't we blessed the way that you're blessed? And it just really never made sense to me. And so that idea that there is this judgmental yet still benevolent energetic being that can choose to bless you, maybe if you behave in a certain way, I think that that's where that comes from. I do remember spending a little bit of time kind of in that wilderness early on, thinking that, gosh, something needs to come save me. And
Mhm.
when you come to the realization that there's nothing out there that's going to save you, not because there isn't a loving energy of source, it's because source isn't judging our human experience the way we judge it. the suffering that we believe we're in, Source sees it very differently.
Well, yeah,
Very, very differently.
I think that's why people are projecting their stuff out onto someone else to fulfill some emptiness inside themselves, because maybe from the religious point of view that something's going to save me or someone else is going to fulfill this part of me, except that's not someone else's job.
Right.
All we have to do is fulfill ourselves and get in that place of holding and stability within ourselves so that we can actually be fully present to whoever it is that we're relating to, so that there isn't this needy energy going out or an expectation energy going out, so that people can just meet you right where you're at. But it's quite rare.
Yeah. Well, and our indoctrination into the matrix is very much heavily laden with, especially, it's probably evolving a bit now, but our generation, the Disney movies, every princess needed to be rescued by a handsome prince. This rescuing energy that's going to come in and save you, meaning that you're not complete on your own. You need someone else
Yeah.
to take you to some space that that's why relationships fail so often,
Oh,
because
yeah.
there's so much expectation and pressure placed on this other being that's finally going to make sense of my life when I haven't yet done the work to do that myself.
Yeah, I manifested somebody like that to deal with my fear of the material world years ago. So instead of actually just dealing with my fear myself and facing it, I manifested a man to come, the knight in shining armor, to come and take care of all that for me. But it was a really careful what you wish for, because, I got exactly what I manifested. And in the bigger picture, I was really smart, because I did learn a whole lot, and it did get me to this perfect place now, but not without a whole bunch of struggle that if I had just faced my fear head on in the first place, I could have avoided all that. But all the other lessons and things that I got along the way were also really beautiful that I could appreciate, right? In the time, I sure wasn't appreciating it. But when we have these tools, it makes the challenges of right now much easier, because then if you are having a day of contrast, instead of going, oh no, contrast, you can sort of grin at it, go, okay, this is fun.
Yeah, you do get, and I know you're freshly out of, you do get in the practice as you continue, where you are able to meet obstacles in joy.
Yeah.
You're able to meet them in joy because you've got such clarity around their value, that you understand that, first of all, you created it. So anything that you create, you also hold the power to solve. And in the solving of it, you are fulfilling your life purpose. People always want to know when they talk to the stream, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? Your purpose is to come and express yourself in a physical vehicle, in a physical environment that is polarized, and utilize that polarizing experience to become a more sophisticated strand of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're here. That is our purpose, every single one of us. And when you start viewing life like that, then you realize that, gosh, this spin out and that imperfection and this crisis and this problem. And then you kind of start working backward through all the way throughout your life. And then, really go to the very beginning, where you realize, wow, this entire belief system I've been running on that's created all my suffering and my judgment was programmed into me, but it was my desire to project into that programming and receive it and forget my source connection. But here I've created enough contrast in my life to where I've got no choice. If I want to be joy, experience joy, clarity, and abundance, my only option is to work all this stuff out all the way back.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as that was a long time ago and it doesn't matter anymore. If it's triggering, or if it creates triggers, it's still happening.
Yeah, I mean,
it's still happening. It doesn't stop. That loop is just always going on and on and on.
It's true. We are products of our parents and our culture, and you've got to look at the kind of core woundings so that you can know who you are and what are the basic, deepest things that run you, because we make this perception when we're 2-3 years old, but we don't have the whole story. And then that perception goes in so deep because we're kind of in survival mode then, trusting these people that we have to believe for our survival. And so we make up these crazy ideas about ourselves and carry them through adulthood, which is nuts, because what you perceive
way deep into, we've had people come into boot camp that are well into their 70s
Oh,
that
sure.
are still running on that, programming from age 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Absolutely. And their whole life has been a reflection of that,
Yeah.
those first handful of experiences that sometimes get amped up to
Mhm.
more what we might consider more severe versions of, but still it's all rooted back there in that early childhood stuff, because that's where the belief system is established. And then the belief system is essentially the reaction to what we're manifesting. And then we just keep doubling down on that and repeating it over and over and over again until we learn to detune.
Well, if you think about vibration and like attracting like, so if you have that negative vibration, that negative feeling, perception of yourself when you're little, of course you're going to repeat that pattern or call in more of the same, maybe different circumstances, but of that same kind of challenging energy, because that's the vibration that you're emitting until you heal that, until you detune that. Yeah, it's so beautiful, it's so powerful. But about just letting yourself off the hook, really. We were just kids when we took on all of these wise ideas about ourselves, and in such a brilliant way so that we could learn from them and clear them. And when you have that clearing and that aha, it's so glorious when you have that feeling of that source energy connection, and it does really lift you up, and and it does feel like everything has been absolutely worth it when you awaken to your authentic self. It is really quite beautiful. Tya will help you do that.
Yeah, it completely changes your perspective of life.
Hmm.
The boot camp journey is for that. It completely changes every aspect of your life from the very beginning, because you reimagine how you are responding to and reacting to everything, and you completely release that victim vibration that holds you in that prison of wherever you believe you are stuck and cannot get out. That's the most valuable thing that I see people getting out of it. And that frustration post that we did yesterday, and it's the one that has the poop emoji if you're in the group. um, we did that on purpose. What's your biggest frustration in the practice? And very often, and we hear this in boot camp all the time, when people come into boot camp, the first thing we do is we do that session to really dig down and identify the top 3 root transgressors. And everyone wants to say that they are their number one transgressor. Well, of course you are, but that's not the point. The root transgressors are, who were your original teachers? Who or what were your original teachers that allowed you or set you off on this path of belief system to become your own transgressor? You're not going to solve being your biggest transgressor without first going into the roots of how you became that transgressor. And then that's the work that we do in boot camp. And it's the most transformative thing I've ever done in my life. It's the most transformative thing that the graduates say that they've done, is getting in and working with the coaches and the mentors and myself, and doing that deep, deep, deep dive into inner work. There's so many things we don't want to face because we are afraid that we're going to suffer in facing them.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I
So afraid
mean,
of suffering, right?
yeah, people are very afraid to go in. Oh, but it might dig up old stuff. Well, yeah, of course it's going to dig up old stuff, but better out than in. Okay, so you cry a bit when you're learning about, when you go back to the woundings, but so what? Look at it, bring it out on the table so that you can see what everything is clearly from an adult perspective, with this understanding, with the tools, with the help, with the support of people to hold you in space and to help you and coach you along the way, so that you're not alone in this process. Because it can be, I mean, some of the wounding is pretty heavy stuff. It's pretty overwhelming. And even for people who've been on a path for a long time, I mean, I've been on my path for 20 years, and going into Tya was really wonderful. I mean, a lot of it wasn't new concepts for me, but to take the tools and reapply it to stuff that I've basically healed. But you can always take the work deeper. And I think the further you are along on your path, your hidden transgressors or branches are a lot stealthier. They hide a lot more easily because you're in a good space, you're doing the work, but there's still stuff lurking in the shadows. And for me, that was what came out, and I could really take it very, very deep and shift at such a deep level. I'm still noticing in different situations the difference in how I react to stuff post Tya as opposed to pre Tya. And it's really cool. And I had to put my ego aside to come in at the level that I was. I mean, I work as a coach. I helped people for 20 years. So to put it aside and let myself be coached by others and to do the work and just receive. And it was really wonderful because to take down those walls, I felt that I really bonded with people, with the coaches, and I felt very seen. I felt very heard. I wasn't feeling judged. I wasn't feeling arrogant. You know, it's very enlightening when you can meet another level of yourself, wherever you are on the path, whether you're brand new or whether you've been doing this forever. So,
very well stated. So thank you for that.
yeah.
The frustration question. The interesting thing is that if you're judging yourself for where you are in your journey, then you're not appreciating the fact that wherever you are is exactly where you should be. Whether you've been at this for a long time and you feel like you're just not getting it and there's a lot of frustration, I understand that. I understand that very well, especially when you were really dialed in or drawn into the idea of the law of attraction and you want your life to be something different than what it is. There's desires that you hold that you're still not allowing yourself to believe that you can have, whether you believe in your worthiness of them or just figuring out how to get into alignment. You know, that was the thing that used to frustrate me with other teachings that I used to be into. That in the beginning really rang true because it was so much like what I was getting from the stream. And then I took it deep enough to where I realized that this message is sort of for this part of a journey.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about the secret book all the time. I think that that's a great gateway into spirituality, but there's no part of that that really goes to the depth of you've got to really go in and start doing the work. Yes, you can attract, if you want to see feathers in a day, you can see feathers. If you want to attract a great parking space, all of that stuff is fun. And then you try to take that creative energy and belief and plop it down onto something that you consider is big, like healing chronic illness or healing loneliness or getting out of an abusive relationship that's been going on for 20 years or, always being broke or always having just barely enough to get by. And that is harder to apply because we have gone far down the path of a certain vibration. That doesn't mean that we can't change the vibration, though. We can change any vibration.
You
Any
can.
vibration can be changed. You can dial in and you can be Elon Musk if you want to be. You can dial into that vibration. But we're all caught up in this matrix of belief. Well, he had, this upbringing and these parents and all of these, and he's so smart and all of this stuff. Well, you can it's a vibration that is created by the conditions. This is how this individual reacted to what he projected into. And there is contrast in that journey, whether you want to believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that, looking at someone else and being inspired by them, but looking at someone else and wishing to be them and trying to replicate their vibration is not the same thing.
No, because you're still looking outside.
Yeah, you're looking outside and you're not valuing your own unique path and journey to where you are and all of the things that you've experienced and what they've done for you. Even if you've just gone through a period that seems kind of dull and lifeless and just sort of surviving, there's gold in there. There's always, always, always gold to be found. We talk about vibrational spirals and the top being source connection and anything below that being just less than that, all the way down to what I think we referred to this a couple of weeks ago as the basement, the bottom of your spiral, and it's full of all this gunk, a lifetime of gunk. Every negative thing that's ever happened to you that you haven't fully detuned through appreciation is resting down there. And all of that gunk is sort of clogging up your vibrational field and dragging you down. And when you start sort of doing this sweep of radical appreciation, reviewing everything, and you realize, gosh, this work, this work is very freeing.
It
This
is,
work
and
raises my vibration.
I think the frustration comes from impatience a lot, because you're doing the work and, well, when is it going to start working? And so you get
Where's my
frustrated.
stuff? Where's my, where's Prince Charming?
Yeah, frustration used to be my default mode. And I did a lot of work, many in the early years. That was the first thing I started with, because I was just frustrated about everything. Some people get angry, some people get sad. For me, it was just immense frustration. And I healed a lot of that in my thought process, so that I felt like I wasn't feeling so frustrated, but my behavior was still one of frustration. I was building a trampoline with a friend. We really needed about 4 people to put this big trampoline together. And all day I was growling and cursing. And all day he's saying, don't worry, it'll be fine. Until finally he was really annoying me, because I was like, what? I'm not worried. And then I realized, have I been growling and cursing all day? He's like, well, yeah. And I thought, oh my God, all this work on frustration, and I'm still acting frustrated, even though I was happy getting a trampoline. So after that, I thought, well, how do I change this? So whenever I felt frustrated, consciously, I would start to laugh, and it would be a fake laugh, but I'd be like, ha ha ha, okay, fine, until I didn't even want to give it that energy anymore. Because your body laughing, it sends out different endorphins and messages to your brain than growling, even if you're not feeling it. It does. That's why smile therapy works too. Even if you're feeling all, but you smile, it changes your body chemistry.
You're disrupting that downward spiral, that vibrational
Breaking
downward
that
spiral. Yeah.
pattern. You really
Yeah.
do. So you can fake yourself out. And I just practice laughing at stuff. So after a while, the stuff that used to make me nuts just doesn't even really ruffle my feathers anymore. And yeah, not a lot frustrates me these days. Now, if I notice I'm getting frustrated, I walk away, go into that low thought activity stuff, just move away from the frustration and go do something else for a while, so that I can come back when I'm aligned, and then I'm back in flow and things tend to work again. So there's you've got to change your thoughts and your behavior associated it. Like, that's the hammering, isn't it? When you're going repetitively over and over in your mind about something, but your hammering might be actually a physical behavior too that you're doing, a pattern.
Well, and it's a habit. We have a habit of hammering, and some of us more than others. I definitely have. I dip in and out of hammering, trying to get it done and make it happen and make it work, and taking action. But if it's not inspired action, it's just going to be frustrating. It's if it works at all, it's going to be a frustrating experience to get there. If you're watching, we have about 15 minutes left. If you have questions, you can type the questions in. If you have anything else that you want to add to this conversation, we'd love to hear from you. There are a lot of you on right now, so ask your questions. If there's anything that didn't get answered about all of that frustration talk from yesterday, I'm sure that post will continue to live on in the group for a while, because there is frustration laced into all of this, because we're changing our whole operating system, and it is work. It is work to change your operating system. Absolutely. We tell everybody that boot camp is called boot camp because it's boot camp. It's work. You get in and you're doing the work. You're going deep. You're working with coaches and your mentors, and you're working with the group, and you are doing a lot of deep dive soul searching into what is sticking you. Mm-hmm. And the whole purpose of all of this is to systematically unstick yourself, move up your vibrational spiral. We talk about default vibration. Your life is a reflection of your default vibration. Mm-hmm. So whatever you've got going on, if it's always, the not enough money thing is big for a lot of people, or the just enough, which is a clear sign of vibration and the universe delivering abundance to us, but our belief system keeping us from allowing that to expand, because we have a belief system that we live a certain way, and no matter what we do, we find ourselves continuing to live that certain way, no matter what. we're still living in the same kind of house and eating the same kind of food and kind of doing the same activities over and over and over again, even when a financial disruption comes in or a health disruption comes in. That's a sign that the universe is sort of guiding us on this autopilot. But the reason that it's autopilot is because we hold ourselves in that recurring mindset of just enough. I should just be thankful that I've got just enough. I should just be thankful that I'm still alive and I'm not dead, even though I don't feel good most of the time. I should just be thankful that even though I'm alone and I'm lonely, I'm not in an abusive relationship. That's great. It's great to appreciate where you are, but understand that if your desire is to expand and experience something else, then you're the only one that's holding you back from that. And it's that when is it going to happen? How is that going to work? I don't understand. That doesn't happen for people like me. All of that negative self-talk is the thing that's holding you in that vibrational space. And our egos do that. Our egos sort of want to keep us, on this steady linear path of little disruption. That fear of, you don't want to experience suffering again, so let's not dig into that. You don't want to suffer, so let's not take this risk. So let's just stay right here in this space. And it just becomes more and more and more uncomfortable for most people.
Yeah, people don't want to go outside of their comfort zone, except that holding all of this rubbish in you, how comfortable is that? That's not going to be comfortable. And over time, that's just going to keep adding up, adding up, adding up until it overflows or turns into disease or something like that. And I think it's really important along the way of your journey to your authentic self is to celebrate each win. Each time that you notice that you don't do something that you used to do, or each time that you notice that you're thinking negatively, you catch yourself, like celebrate that, like, yay, I noticed, that's awesome. Not, oh God, I've been doing that for 4 hours. No, just celebrate that you're noticing, because that's awesome. That's like a step in the right direction. And we've got to really change that mindset so that we're looking at things in a positive light to help us want to continue on this path and pull us forward. Because whenever you're looking towards the light, as they say, whenever you're feeling pulled up, even if it's from self-celebration, it makes you feel better than focusing on lack, focusing on all the stuff that you didn't do right or how long you've been suffering. By changing your focus, it's so powerful, and you can reframe anything in 1 second.
Indeed.
It's just catching yourself.
Well, and it's something that, just like anything else, the more you do it, the easier it gets, the better you get at it. And so the practice of Tya, again, the more you do it, the more you do it, the more you do it. And the whole goal of boot camp, in fact, we don't graduate anyone from boot camp until they know the practice and it's their way of life, or it's becoming their way of life. They know what the practice is, they know how to do it, and they've seen it show up in their lives. So you don't graduate until you've seen actual change come to your life that you know is a direct result as your work in boot camp. And that's a very important thing, because we want you to trust it. We want you to trust your abundance, of course. That's what Tya stands for. But we want you to trust your ability to practice it and see it show up, and understand that when you get out and go back out into the world, whether you're sort of still tied to the Tya community like many are or not, you have the tools to forever reframe anything and everything that crosses your path. And the more you do it, the easier it is to do it right at the onset. Laughing in the face of contrast, because you manifested it, and it's a gift that you've given yourself, and now all you have to do is appreciate it. And the solving of it is a natural occurrence, because abundance is our natural state of being. That's true for planet Earth. That's true for all beings on planet Earth. We are naturally abundant beings. Naturally. The only thing that holds us away from abundance is our mindset, our operating system, getting distracted, all of these tools. Because as more and more people wake up, like you were saying, that the more the elements of control want to dig in. And we want to think that it's the cabal, the what do you call it? The Illuminati, the cabal of evil beings that control the planet. It's not a group of people as much as it's a vibration. There is an active vibration on planet Earth across humanity that is very much about the matrix. The
And
ones that are peddling fear
unfortunately,
are tuned into that.
yeah, at the moment, there's a lot of fear in at the moment, a very high level of fear. I mean, the world goes through ups and downs too, but there is a huge amount of fear. And for empathic people, and a lot of people in this kind of line of work feel things perhaps more strongly than other people. And so it is hard to keep that fear separate. So it's important to know where your energy ends and where other people's energy begins, so that the more aligned you are with yourself, you know what is yourself, you know what is other people's stuff, so that if people are projecting onto you, you're not going to take on all of that fear from outside of you, because that's not going to help you either.
Well, I found the more you detune judgment, the judgment of the human journey,
Yeah.
the more you detune the judgment of others' suffering.
Yeah.
One of the most important things that source, the stream, same thing, says is that we need to learn to allow others to have their experience without judgment,
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
because there's
Absolutely.
value even in the things that are labeled as suffering. And all of that stuff is fed to us in this steady diet of social media. Look at this suffering, look at this injustice, look at this thing that's wrong. You need to be over here agreeing with me, and you need to be battling that and fighting that. And it's this never ending cycle of battle, because the battle and the fighting and the demonization gives it life.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing people don't get, is that you're giving life to it. When you are battling it and demonizing and fearing it, you can withdraw your focus from it and focus on your own strand of consciousness well-being, and understand that you are doing far more for humanity. And again, what happens though? Oh, you're selfish. That's not benevolent. How can you not be kind? You should be kind, and you should be battling on the behalf of others who are weaker than you. Think about how much judgment is in all of that
Yeah.
thought. But
Well,
we're
it's
taught that that's good. If you're a good person, you're out trying to save people from their own contrast. If you're a good person, you're fighting evil. But if you're fighting evil, you are fueling evil. You are a
true.
player in that game, and you are helping create the evil, because the evil creation is all a creation of the matrix. There's no evil force out in the energetic realm projecting in. We are creating that simply through source separation.
Yeah, it's
Source
true.
separation is when we're not loving ourselves, when we're fearing, when we're judging, when we're envying. All of that stuff is source separation, because source is viewing every element of planet Earth as exactly what it should be, and an amazing, loving, joyous ride for everyone that's here, regardless of what they're moving through and experiencing. And it's so opposite of what we are taught, especially in religion.
It's
Especially in religion.
interesting, David, because somebody once pointed out to me that none of the great spiritual masters, you never see any of them at a riot or a parade or anything. And I'm like, well, no, because they're not in the fight. And for the activists out there, thank you. I'm not an activist. So there's people who have their course and their contract in this life to do what they need to do. But it's about what kind of fight are you having with the world, with yourself on a daily basis. If you're in any kind of resistance with anything, whether it's the smallest thing around you that you can change, or whether it's in a relationship or your job or your country or your government, if you're feeling resistance and anger, then you're in the fight. So that's like, great. Appreciate that, because that lets you know what you need to work on, so that you can get back in alignment and get consciously connected and get in that inner peace state, right?
Mhm.
And to find compassion for the fight, because like David was saying, it is really important, because these things move and shift the universe. It takes people and humanity to another level of consciousness. All of it does. Yeah.
I love that. I really do. And to wrap up, there's something that came up yesterday in a couple of coaching sessions that I love to remind everybody of, that it's so helpful to reimagine your linear human experience, to take that we all think in a timeline. I was in this marriage for this many years, and it sucked because of XYZ, and it was great because of this other thing. And then I was in this career, and then I was in this financial state, and then I lived in this city, and I had all these linear experiences. And as I moved through life, I just keep having these linear experiences. And to what you were saying earlier, there's no point in trying to be so specific in designing your future, because there's fear in that as well, right? I need to design the specific future, because if I don't design it, I'm going to suffer in the not having it. Instead, allowing simply your whole life to be broken up into these bubbles of experience. I had this experience, and this is what I gained from it. I had that experience, and I understand now through appreciation, that's what I gained from it. If nothing else, understanding that being, for example, being an abused child in some way, that makes us more sophisticated versions of us, because we move through that experience.
Absolutely. And what you're thinking about the future, or worrying or projecting about the future now, whether it happens or not, when you get to that point, you're going to have a completely different viewpoint and perspective than you do from back here anyway. And so you don't know what it is that you're going to feel like when you get there. I mean, if I had looked in a crystal ball before I started shaman school on this path all those years ago, I never would have started, because I would have seen myself alone in Spain without my husband and kids, and thinking, no, no way, I'm not going to lose everybody I loved. That was my biggest fear about stepping into my authentic self, that if I was truly me, I would lose everybody I loved. And I didn't lose everybody I loved. My relationship with my husband did change, but we're super close friends, and we're in a very united family. So what? We're all really tight, and we've healed. It changed form, but by the time that happened, I had such a completely different perspective than when I feared losing things, right? So I'd never lost anything. I only gained myself in the whole journey, and you will too. And that's part of the trust aspect, I guess. Surrender and trust. It'll all work out.
Indeed. So I want to, first of all, thank Shannon for being our guest. Again, our most recent graduate from Tya Bootcamp. If all of this rings true for you, and you are interested in taking everything that we've shared here today and making this your new way of life and really immersing yourself in it, then talk to us about Tya Bootcamp. We are really focusing on enrollment for Tya Bootcamp for the month of February. It's a great time to get in. We had a fantastic group come through last year, starting in February. Many of them are working in the business now. All of our coaches and all of our mentors and most of our employees in general are graduates of the bootcamp program. And Shannon is going to move into coaching with us as well, and bring all of her wealth of experience into the bootcamp journey for everybody, which I'm very, very grateful for, to have this alignment and have you go through. And, we talked about coaching, and she thought, well, I'll come through and check out boot camp. She came in and had this whole different experience, which you've shared. And your testimonial, I believe, we'll have to talk to our video editor, Rome. Your testimonial should be coming out this week, I believe. And it's a really good one. We have 2 really fantastic new testimonials coming out this week. We have a whole playlist of testimonials. We have a whole, if you go to Trustpilot and type in the Stream of David, we have Trustpilot reviews that you can go and review and just learn from other people who have gone through the Tya Bootcamp journey. So we will post the link in here to book your discovery session. If you're ready to talk to us about joining Bootcamp, you can book that session. It's a wonderful learning experience, regardless of whatever the next step after that session is. And it's an absolutely free interaction with an enrollment coach and you. And the enrollment coaches, again, they're graduates of the program. They're not people that are looking to sell you something that you don't need or you're not ready for. They're looking to see that you're qualified and ready for this journey, because that's really what it's about. So I want to thank all of you for watching and participating, and thank you all for your wonderful comments. It's always good to see familiar faces and new faces on here. Hopefully we spread some love and joy and enlightenment in all of this. And I know that that watching this again and again and again, hopefully this stuff will start to really sink in. And then when you're so inspired, the bootcamp journey, there's nothing like it. So I look forward to seeing all of you in there as well. Shannon, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, David, for having me. I really look forward to meeting all of you.
Bye now.